I'm going to kind of gloss over Zoom a lot because we have all, unfortunately, had a lot of experience with Zoom lately. So we're just going to talk a really basic, high level about the recording stuff. So, and then we'll dive into some of the other things that are going to take more time, like Screencastomatic and iMovie and YouTube. So, going to switch here to. Since we're in Zoom, I can't show you Zoom, so I have some screenshots. In Zoom, once you set up a meeting and get it started with the participants and everything, at the very bottom, as long as you're logged in as the host, you will have the ability to record the screen. The one other caveat is that you need to have a Zoom Pro account. Zoom Pro is licensed for our entire campus now. So we don't have a limitation in how many people we can add. So if you don't have a Zoom Pro license, send an email to support@beloit.edu and I will get you set up with an account. Once you have the account, setting up meetings and everything happens through the zoom.us website interface or through a Chrome extension called Zoom Scheduler that integrates Zoom with your Google Calendar. So once you start the meeting, you can click that record button. You'll also see that once you start recording that there will be a pause and or stop button down at the bottom. This is most helpful if you have to do a sidebar conversation with a student or something like that and don't want that in the recording, or if you're doing a lecture recording, sort of like an asynchronous thing. So you can record a lecture with just you in the Zoom call and then download the video and post that to your Moodle page or share with students in some other way. There's also in the More tab, which ends up at the top of the screen when you're in a recording or doing a screen share, the pause, stop, and meeting info all show up there. And then whenever
Wait, Adam,
start, sorry.
Can you go back for a second?
Yep.
So one thing that I just learned yesterday is if you're sharing a screen and you want to switch to a different screen, you can click that new share option and it will pop up with all of your different screens. So you don't have to like go back to you can just toggle between screens. Maybe everybody else knows that and it was brand new to me, but I just wanted to share because I was very excited.
No, Kelly just shared this with me this morning and I didn't know that. So I learned something even, so. Okay, sorry. Then recording. Whenever you're doing a recording, the recording button will show up flashing in the top left corner to let participants know that a recording is in progress too. Once the meeting is completed, the file will be converted in the background and download to your computer. So this process, it can take a little bit of time. It depends on the length of the meeting. Sometimes if you've got like a 15-minute meeting and it only takes 5 minutes to convert and download the video. If you're doing a full 2-hour lecture or something like that, it's gonna take a little bit of time. So just know that that's happening in the background and you need to let it finish. If you interrupt the conversion process by trying to open the file or move the file, we've found that ends up corrupting the file. So you'll just need to be careful and cognizant of that piece. So once the recording's completed, it's going to download to your local computer in the Zoom directory. On PCs, this is in My Documents. On Mac, this goes into the Documents folder. It automatically creates a folder called Zoom, and then it will have a serialized number with a timestamp that you see here in Kelly's example. You'll get 3 files every time you do this. So one is the MP4, which is the audio and video all in one. Then there's going to be an audio only in case you want to share that with someone. Some students have been having problems doing video playback where they're at, so they prefer audio options. And then the playback M3U file is actually just a playlist file, so you can just sort of ignore that. In Zoom, there is a captioning button. Unfortunately, the way captions work in Zoom right now is that you have to assign a captionist. So you can assign a student or somebody to transcribe while you're writing, or there's an option for connecting to an external service. We're looking into this. It's a little pricey is what we're finding right now. So if you need captions in Zoom, Kelly's going to show another way that can be done through YouTube auto captioning, which are editable and work pretty well too. So we'll look at some other options for captioning as we go along. So that is sort of Zoom recording in a nutshell. Does anybody have any questions?
So Sylvia asks, how big is a file for a 1 to 2 hour session, and how much memory is that going to take on the computer?
Good question. A 1 to 2 hour video is going to be quite large. The rule of thumb is about 100 megs per 10 minutes. So, you know, you're going to end up with a multiple gig file if it's over an hour. So it may need to be recompressed if it's too large to share.
Can I say something? This is Sylvia.
Yep.
So I'm just wondering about, for instance, students off campus, including international students. So let's say that they are going to be listening to recorded sessions. Are we going to provide them some documentation about how to not only access those, but store them? Because if these are huge files, I can't imagine that students will have the capacity to store very many of them.
No, the students are not going to have to store them at all. We're going to go over how to do uploads to YouTube, and we can show Google Drive as well. In that case, the video is hosted in the cloud, and the students just have to view the file.
Okay.
It doesn't have to store on their local device at all. They just stream it like you would stream a Netflix show or something like that.
Right.
So Adam, do you mean then that if we were to use Moodle to include the links on our Moodle site to some external platform for them to watch the video as opposed to hosting through
Right.
Moodle? Okay.
Yeah, Moodle's storage is also finite, unfortunately. So what we tend to recommend is, and I've got this later down here when we're going to talk about YouTube, but there's easy ways to embed a video in Moodle and or link to it so that students have direct access to that, so that they don't have to kind of hunt around for something. So we'll definitely show that as we go along here. I have it in the same tab. So Screencastomatic is one option that I like a lot for screencasting and web recording. The basic Zoom or the basic Screencastomatic account is free. That will record up to 15 minutes. And then it allows you a limited amount of cloud storage, but you can also download videos. The pricing is really good if you need to do something a little more robust. If you move up to this deluxe plan, it's only $15 a year. I have that plan set up, so it's really cheap, and you don't have to worry about where you're going to store videos. You can also host videos from Screencastomatic. You get storage space there. So it's pretty beneficial. There's also a editor built in with captioning abilities. So we can take a look at that really quick. So once you create an account, you have to download a little application to run on your computer that interfaces with the microphone and the camera on the computer. But then you can launch the recorder or do screen capture directly from the web interface. Okay, so the Screencast-O-Matic interface is pretty easy. It's just a small application that runs on the desktop, and then you get this pop-up menu that will allow you to record screen, record webcam, or record both. So you can get the whole screen in place, pull up a website or something like that, walk students through a bit of software, and also record a webcam with like a little picture-in-picture interface. You can also flip-flop the webcam so that you're primary and the screen is secondary, or you can record one or the other. It allows you to select audio sources and video sources, and you can even record computer audio if you need to. Then the max record time is always, I do 0, so that you record whatever you need. Once you have a recording, this is what you end up with. So you'll see that I have some recordings in here. If I want to edit one of those, I can just double click on it and click edit. There we go. This provides a really simple interface for trimming the ends of a video, and it will also help you identify places where you left gaps in your speech. So it will help you auto delete those if you want to. You can also merge clips. So you saw in the previous screen where I had multiple different clips that I'd recorded. I can insert from an existing recording if I want to, and add something, and then it adds it wherever your cursor was at. So there's a lot of other tools in here too. So you can cut, copy, you can hide clips so that you can selectively hide the picture in picture. So you'll see I have 2 video options here. It's showing both the webcam and the main video. I can select to hide the webcam if I want to after the fact, which is really helpful. You can insert narration. So if you wanted to do a voiceover, if you wanted to do the screen recording first to kind of walk yourself through the steps and record that, and then add a narration track after the fact, you can do that. You can also insert music if you would like to. Overlay will allow you to add text and annotation overlays. And it's disappearing here. You can adjust speed, add transitions, and then boost or lower the volume of the audio as well. So a lot of flexibility and features in this product for a pretty low price. The other thing I wanted to show is this captioning. So by default, captions are not included when you do a recording in Screencast-O-Matic, but they're very easy to add. Once you go into edit mode in the video, you can just click the captions button. And then what I start with is this speech to text. It's going to auto recognize any speech in the video, and will automatically try and recognize that and produce text from it. Yep. So it populates the text, and it's got the time codes, and you can jump to any of these and it will jump to that point in the video so that you can re-listen to it and edit the text right here in the editor. You can edit the text right in the editor. Once you approve it, it's going to lay a black bar underneath at the bottom of the video, and the captions will appear there. It will also include a caption track when you export the video. So if you are uploading this to YouTube or something, some other video service, that the closed caption button will appear at the bottom of the video for students to be able to click to get larger captions or to be able to grab the transcript. So,
Adam?
Yep.
Kristen has a question about annotating or drawing on videos in Screencast-O-Matic. Can you explain that a little bit?
Yep. There is a function for that. Let me go back in here. You can add overlays. So you can add images, you can blur, put in arrows, highlights, text, paste. I don't know what paste is. You can add a video, another video. So if you have another video that you want to if you're doing like a slideshow and you want to show a related video, you can pop that in a picture-in-picture, sort of like we have the webcam up here. There's also, when you're doing the recording, there's an annotate option. So if I switch back to, yeah, I'll launch the recorder here. When you're doing the recording, there's also a annotate button right here so that you can, it will take a screenshot of whatever you have up, and then you get sort of the same annotation tools that you would have in something like Zoom. And you can do a recording of that while you're narrating over the top. You also have the ability to drop that webcam picture over one corner or somewhere in the video when you're doing the recording. Screencastomatic also has a ton of built-in tutorials on their webpage too. Pretty much anything that you're trying to do, any of the tools that they have built into the recorder, they have documented really well. Not surprisingly, they use their own tool to record their tutorial videos. So it also is a good overview of kind of what's possible with the tool itself. So.
Before we move on, James had a question about, or Jim had a question about embedding quizzes. I don't think that's possible in Screencast-O-Matic, right?
No, Screencast-O-Matic does not have that feature, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So, and then I forgot to show, when you're done doing the recording, you just click the done button and it will give you options for publishing. So it will allow you to publish, if you have a Screencast-O-Matic account, with the deluxe plan or higher, you have cloud storage options right on Screencast-O-Matic. So you can send the video directly there and it will host it. And then you'll be able to link students to the video or use the embed code from the video to place the video directly in your Moodle site for students to view. It also has a download option, which just like we saw with Zoom, it will give you an MP4 video file that you can then turn around and upload to Google Drive or YouTube or Vimeo or any other kind of cloud video service. While Screencast-O-Matic is the one that we've shown here today, there's a lot of other options out there. I like Screencast-O-Matic because it's really low cost. And if you want to just try it out, making a 15-minute video is a good way to do that. And that videos of that length are free to create. There's also apps, there's one called Screencastify that is cross-platform that works within Chrome. So it will even work on like a Chromebook or an Android tablet or phone. And then if you're really into this and want to kind of go to a more pro product, there's a platform called OBS Studio. It's available for Mac, PC, and Linux. It's completely free. It's an open source product, but it's used by Twitch game streamers and things like that. So it's pretty advanced. There's a lot of settings and a lot of ways that it can go wrong. So I've had a little bit of experience and would be happy to try and help you with that if you want to try it out. So.
Really fun. So to get started, you just head to iMovie. If you're using a Mac, you may need to download the app from the App Store, but it's free. The Windows version of this is Windows Movie Maker, which is very simple. It kind of reminds me a little bit of Screencast-O-Matic, but it has some different features. So if you just need to like trim the beginning and end of a video, that's kind of what we're going to talk about. I'm not going to get into like some really over the top editing. But if you need any help with Windows Movie Maker, just reach out to me and we can play around with it. So to get started, you just hit create new, and we're going to make a movie because we don't need to make a movie trailer right now. Click the arrow to import media. And it shows, you can find the file for your MP4 for wherever you have it hidden. You can also drag files in. So here's my video that I made this morning, and I'm just going to import it. So on the screen, we have 3 basic sections. The top left is like your clip bin. It's where you're gonna pull all your content. The top right is your preview, and then the bottom here is your timeline. And so in order to edit this video, we have to drag it onto the timeline. And it just it tells you exactly where it wants to go. And this line is your playhead. So what you do is you can scroll through and you see how things are changing. I won't play the audio on here because that would be really confusing, but I can see that this is where I start talking in my video from that blue screen down here. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna click right there, and I just want to trim my video to start at that point. Go to modify, and I'm going to trim to playhead. And so you see that my video shortened by that like 10 seconds or so. And what you can do if there's an area that you want to cut out or move, you're just going to, once again, scroll the playhead, click down, and then you can go back up to modify and you can split the clip. And so it broke it into 2. And then I'm going to go to the section that I want to cut. I just want to cut out where I went to that lib answers thing. And then I click again and I go to modify and split clip. If you use keyboard commands, it's Command B to split. And then what I get to do is I can highlight this part of my video, this new mini clip that I have, and I can move it somewhere else if I want to, or I can delete it entirely. And then you'll see that the video is going to play it's going to play continuously, even though there's a gap there. That's a little different than some other video editors where if you actually have a gap, it will in fact play the gap. As a black screen, it's perfect. The other option for trimming a video is to actually, you can click the playhead here and you just pull it to where you want it to end. And so that's a good way to just really quickly trim the beginnings and ends of your video. Have I moved too quickly? I want to show a couple of quick examples. You can add a title in here really easily, and that could be a good sort of organization tool if you want to do that. So you can say, this is my like research appointment, and you can have different options for your different like classes. So that's a quick way to keep yourself like, to keep things simple for yourself. You don't have to do that. It's just incredibly easy in here. So if I can do that, you can get as fancy as you want. I'm a pretty simple person, but you can also add like backgrounds and different transitions if you'd like. You can also, of course, import additional clips. So if you have 2 different lectures, 2 different videos that you took in Zoom and you want to combine them into one larger video, you can absolutely just import another video onto there.
Hey, Kelly.
Yes.
Tamara was wondering if you could show that modify options again.
Yeah, absolutely. So here's the modify, the modify options up in the toolbar. As you can see, they're grayed out until I click on the, I click the playhead down, and then I have actual options. You can also right click on the playhead if you want to like split the clip there. So there, like I said, there's a lot of different ways to do this. So if going up to modify feels kind of clunky, you don't have to do that. If you ever do something and you immediately regret it, you can always do Command Z, which is like whoopsies in Mac. And then you can also do an undo split up in Edit. So you can undo everything that you've done. So nothing is permanent, which I appreciate. As I mentioned, there's lots of ways to get fancy if you want to do like transitions. It's kind of like, at some point it becomes like a PowerPoint presentation where there's all of the different ways to like filter your information in, and it can get a little bit distracting. So I tend to be really simple as I'm doing tutorial videos because I'm trying to explain something that might be confusing for people. When you've finished your video and you're happy with it, you're going to then share it. As we mentioned before, there's a couple of options for us. You can share it to a Google Drive if you want. That's perfectly fine. Stick with what makes sense for you. You can also share videos to YouTube. And I mention that because YouTube has that auto captioning option, which works pretty well. You can also, and I'll show how to do this, but you can also put in your own transcript of your lecture. So if you're someone that lectures like off a script, you can put that script in there, and it makes like really accurate captions. So go to File and then Share. If you want to share it to your Google Drive, you're just going to download that local file and it'll spit it out as an MP4. I'm going to show you how to download it, or excuse me, upload it to YouTube. So if you haven't uploaded to YouTube, it'll ask you to log in. Hopefully it'll be really fast because it's just a minute video. I have to verify that I'm not violating copyright, and then it's going to go and do its thing, and it will take a second. I wanted to explain a couple of options when you're uploading videos to YouTube. So there are three like viewing options. The first is public video. So that means that I can search it and I can find it. I could search your name and get to your YouTube page and see the video. There's private, where you share that URL with someone and they have to be logged into their YouTube account. And I looked it up yesterday, and that is limited to 50 students. So for the fall, you could probably do that and it would be fine. But if you want to reuse videos in the future, that might become a problem. The third option is unlisted. And that means that it's not going to show up publicly on YouTube, but anybody with that link can access it. So that's what so those are your three options. There's not, just go with whatever makes sense to you. So when you're at your YouTube page, there's a couple of ways to get to the video like studio. I always forget, and for some reason don't see YouTube Studio as an option. So you can get there from your channel itself, and then you're going to go to YouTube Studio. And you'll see when it loads that my options over here have changed. So I can click on the left side of the screen here and go to videos. And as we can see, it is still uploading. YouTube can be really fast sometimes, and it can be really, really slow. And sometimes it seems like it doesn't actually depend on the length of the video. It just kind of depends on like the traffic that's going on there. So you just have to be a little bit patient. But while we're waiting for that to upload, I'll show you this video that I created yesterday. And I did this as a test to see if an unlisted video would generate auto captions, and it turns out it does. So that could be a good tool for you if you have like that 55-minute lecture and you don't have time to sit there and transcribe every sentence, because that does take a lot of time. I don't know if Angie is here, but when it comes to captions, we have some students that rely on them for videos. And so if you have a student that comes to you and says, hey, I really need this accommodation, and you are not sure what to do, you can always reach out to Angie, or you can reach out to someone at LITS and we can help you sort of with that technology. But during the spring, LITS did a technology survey of our students, and we found that a lot of students like to have captions. They may not rely on it as an accommodation, but it's something that they prefer. Some captions are better than no captions, even if it's a little bit clunky. So if we click here on details, which is the little pen, I can see all of the information about my video. I can change the title of the video. I can add a description. So if this was actually a lecture, I could say bio lecture 1. And then if I wanted to have a note like directly to my students, like remember assignment due on Wednesday or whatever, you can do that. You can change that here. You can also change the thumbnail if you'd like. You can also add a video to a playlist if you'd like. So if you want to have your student presentations in a separate playlist for students to view on their own time, you can do that. I've made a lectures playlist. You can just create a playlist right in here, and it's pretty easy. So to go back to subtitles, that's the option over here on the left side of the screen. And I can see that it's published those automatic subtitles for me. it was not instantaneous. I did it last night, and when I checked it this morning, there were captions, but it didn't happen within like an hour. It took a little bit of time. So that's something to think about too. If you're uploading your video on a Monday and students are going to view it on a Wednesday, you're probably going to have those auto-generated captions. So you can click the 3 dots here to get more options. And one thing you can do is edit them. So if you found that those captions are absolutely messed up, or you want to change something, like one of the things that I noticed was here, it doesn't have the library URL correct. So I can click in here and I can say, hey, like that's not right, please let's change it. So then you would just go to edit, hello, and then you can make changes, and you can move things on the playhead to get them to line up perfectly. Perfect. So let's go back and see if our video has uploaded.
One question that came up in chat was if YouTube was available in China. I just shared a site in the chat that is very helpful if you're trying to figure out if something's available there. It's called the Great Firewall of China. So if you type a web address into the engine there, it will test it by bouncing it off of a Chinese server. Unfortunately, YouTube is currently blocked. That does seem to go back and forth sometimes. So if you have students that need to view videos from China, you might want to try Google Drive. Or if you need to find some other options, let me know and I can point you to some other services that are available for video sharing that might be more successful there.
Yeah.
Adam, does that mean that Google Drive, even though it's a Google product, has been working in China?
It's hit and miss, unfortunately. We've been able to embed videos into Moodle courses, which I'm going to show in a little bit, and it works successfully there because it plays it through Moodle, and it's just calling the video externally. So that's worth a try. If not, there's another video service called Vimeo that does a lot, and I think that one's available. At least it was the last time I checked.
Thank you.
So now my video is done, which is exciting. So once again, you can go to this details option, and I just want to show you quickly how to get back to that subtitles section, and it's going to ask you to set a language. And so if you like have that script or really want it to be absolutely like perfectly accurate, you can upload that script in here. So we're going to go ahead and say add. And what I'm going to try and do is the transcribe and auto sync, because it takes some of the work out of the process. And I have written up very short, like just the beginning part of my video. And then we say set timings, and eventually it will spit out a video with captions. And you can always go back and edit those captions later, just like we did in that first video that I showed you. When you're making videos, it's helpful to explain what you're doing as you're doing it. So if you notice, what I tried to do when I was showing my screen was I tried to say over on the left side of the screen, you're going to click like the second box down and it's blue or whatever. So it's just kind of helping people who are not looking at you follow what you're doing, especially because cursors are so small that they can be really hard to follow. And that's the second tip that I have, is try to move your cursor directly to where you're going, as opposed to like going wild with it in like a big circle. One thing that I'll also do, particularly when I'm doing like reference videos, is I will circle what I'm about to click. And so that can be really handy as well, because it just gives your students another way of being able to follow. I want to show the distance learning website that we are updating daily. So if you head to the library website, which is beloit.edu/library, on the left bar, we have distance learning resources at the very bottom. And so this is a website that Adam, Athena, Haley, and I have been updating, and it has information about what we talked about today. So it has documentation for Zoom recording, and we're going to add in some more documentation and eventually upload this video but it has some other information on some of the tools that we got feedback from faculty that you're interested in using. So this is a great sort of place to start if you want to explore some of the different software and technology that is out there.
We had a couple questions about Windows Movie Maker.
Oh, yeah.
Good news, bad news. Windows Movie Maker, if you have it on your machine, it should still work. Unfortunately, they discontinued it in the fall update. So
no.
there's not a new version available. They've folded all of the features that were in Windows Movie Maker into Photos, actually. So you can create videos through Photos, and there's an option called Story Remix that allows you to combine clips. And the interface looks very similar to iMovie and has similar export options.
Okay, and we'll get some documentation for that on the distance learning page for everyone if that's useful.
Yep, and again, I also wanted to share a couple alternatives. There's two really good alternatives to iMovie if you don't have a Mac. Obviously, the Photos and Story Remix built into Windows. And then there's a couple of open source video editors here. One's called OpenShot, and that is very similar in setup to iMovie. So you get the bin in the upper left corner, the preview in the upper right, and then the timeline at the bottom. And then the editing process works very similarly. And then if you want something more professional level with more options, there's a program called DaVinci Resolve. I'll put a link in the comments in just a moment on both of those actually. DaVinci is the equivalent, it's a free program, but it's the equivalent to Adobe Premiere Pro. So it's pretty high end and you can do some very, very advanced stuff with that if you want to. But the system requirements are much less and it's also not $200. So.